Everyone has heard of Message in a Bottle. It was even made into a song by Sting. But you may be surprised to hear that people actually put messages in a bottle quite a lot. Join us as we have a look at some messages that have been found in bottles. Number 10. A pirate message. We begin with recent history, because the fun fact about messages in bottles is that they're still being found even to this day. Don't believe us? Well, how about a story about a 30-year-old message that was found in a bottle by some people in Florida after Hurricane Irma? The couple found the bottle, took out the cork, and saw what it read, which said, quote, "We are learning all about pirates. We would like to see how far this message goes. Please write and tell us where you found the bottle. We are Class 213, Chappelle Park School." Now, there's several interesting things about this message, not the least of which is that it was found, and the couple actually worked pretty hard to find the school. As it turns out, the school was in Forfar Angus, Scotland, or should we say, it was originally there. That's because the school doesn't exist anymore. However, after some extensive digging, they did give it to another school in Scotland, who then found the teacher that helped to send the bottle off. As it turned out, the message is 30 years old, and there's even a picture of the class all dressed up as pirates. And while the message may have taken a while, it's chalked up as a successful class project. Number 9. A final message from the Titanic, the infamous ship that sank after hitting an iceberg, and then later becoming a major motion picture, claiming the lives of most who were on board. While the story is one that will certainly last the test of time, there is a little-known story that should go along with it. One of the passengers on the fatal ship was a young man by the name of Jeremiah Burke. His quest was to take the ship to go be with his family in Boston. He was joined by his cousin, and both of them were just wanting to go and be with their family and begin new lives. When the ship began to sink, however, Jeremiah would write a note saying, "From Titanic, goodbye all, Burke of Glanmire, Cork." After penning the message, he then placed it into a bottle and threw it into the sea. Which is seemingly the end of the story, right? Wrong. For that bottle, whether by God's hand or by fate, it found its way to his family. For a year after the Titanic sank, it washed ashore just a few miles from where the family actually lived. Now naturally, the family kept the message for quite a long time, but eventually it would be donated where you can still see it today, in the Cobb Heritage Center. Number 8. From wife to daughter. Now when you look back at history, you honestly have to wonder how many people from events like wars and battles actually made notes to their loved ones. You know, just in case they never made it home. In the case of World War I, we do have one case of a soldier doing exactly that. His name was Private Thomas Hughes, and he wrote a message to his wife, and after placing it inside of a ginger ale bottle of all things, he tossed it into the English Channel. Sadly for him, he would pass away 2 days later during a battle in France. Now, jump to the year 1999 near the River Thames. A fisherman finds a bottle, decides to look up what happened to the man. And that's when he found out that though the man had been gone a long time, his daughter was actually alive. In fact, she was only 1 year old when her father died in the war. Now, 86 years old, she received the message in the bottle from the fisherman, and regardless of how she felt, it's something that she likely treasured. Because it's the final message from a father that she never knew, dying in order to serve and protect his country. Number 7. Doing an experiment. In 2018, a lady named Tanya Illman found a gin bottle on Wedge Island near Australia. She opened it up and found documents from a German ship. These documents would reveal what the ship was, where it was going, and where the bottle itself had been dropped off. Oh, and it had a request to return the bottle with a note about where it had been found. That's because the German Naval Observatory would use these messages in bottles to study currents and their patterns. Believing the information they did would help them to discern certain things about the ocean. And yes, you could argue that this one never got to serve its purpose, however, it did help to prove something about science and experiments back in the day. Number 6. 2 lives helping 2 lives. The true wonder of a message in a bottle is that you honestly have no idea who's going to discover it. Sure, you could hope that someone would find it, but you honestly don't know who will. Sometimes it's just a passerby, and sometimes it finds its way to people who honestly do need some help and some hope. In 1979, Dorothy and John Peckham were vacationing in Hawaii when they had a fun idea. They wanted to send out messages in bottles to see who would find them. Completely harmless for sure. And to ensure that they would hear back from people, they put $1 in each bottle they sent out with a return address to mail it to. 4 years later, the two would receive a letter from a man who was a former soldier in Vietnam. Him and his brother found the bottle while drifting on the ocean trying to escape their homeland. And they would use the dollar to write back to the Peckhams with a single request: help us get to the United States. The Peckhams were then able to meet up with the brothers in 1985 and help them get a new life in the United States. Number 5. A former world record holder. Now, there's a world record for just about everything, but sometimes it's really cool to see what certain records are. And the message from the German observatory that we mentioned before is actually the world record holder for the oldest message found in a bottle. Before that, though, another message held the record. Made in 1914, it was found by a Scottish fisherman. He pulled the bottle up while hauling up his most recent catches. But what actually made the bottle so special was that it was penned by Captain C. Hunter Brown of the Glasgow School of Navigation. So why is that so special? Well, Captain Brown had been using bottles like these for a very special project, and he sent out a lot of them. In fact, 1,889 of them would go into the sea. The fisherman then gave the bottle to an agency in Aberdeen who actually studies the former captain's work, and to this day, they found about 315 of the original 1,800 bottles. Number 4. To my love, who I don't know yet. Now, it's very easy to romanticize things, but some things have an inherent romantic quality about them, even if you don't see it at first. And messages in a bottle, well, they definitely qualify. After all, you're putting your hopes and wishes in a bottle in the hopes that the person who finds it will write to you. Or you can also make a message to try and find your true love. The year was 1956, and a man from Sweden named Ek Viking, who was a man who lived his life on the sea, was desperate for love. So desperate, in fact, that he wrote a message, slipped it into a bottle, and labeled it "To Someone Beautiful and Far Away." He also left information on how he could be contacted, and would let fate decide who it ended up with. That's when 2 years later, an Italian woman by the name of Paulina found the letter and wrote back to him saying, "It's so miraculous that the bottle should have traveled so far and long to reach me that I must send you an answer." Touched by her response, the two would then begin a correspondence, and of course they fell in love and got married and then moved to Sicily. So I guess it just goes to show that love can be found anywhere, even in the depths of a bottle. Number 3. By order of the Queen. Now, we've already established that messages in a bottle can be used for science, and they can also be used for legitimate messaging. In fact, pirates of all people would use messages in a bottle to transmit their fleets or shipmates. Now, it's unknown how effective it actually was, but hey, they're pirates. They knew the seas and oceans that they sailed on better than anyone else, so it is totally plausible. However, a twist in this tale comes from Queen Elizabeth I. She actually encouraged privateering for many years, and would dub certain pirates as sea dogs, but it was completely out of affection for them. She also respected the pirates' way of communication via messages in a bottle, and to that end, she wanted to protect the messages. So she set up an office that was stationed by a single person with the title of Uncorker. By her official decree, any message that was found in a bottle would have to be brought to this person, and they alone could uncork the bottle to see what was inside. And then the contents would be reported to the Queen. Oh, and if you opened it without having the authority, you would be charged and arrested for a capital crime. Long live the Queen. Number 2. Write me, maybe? A few entries back, we talked about a captain who sent nearly 1,900 bottles into the sea for research. Well, in 1996, someone decided to top him on a grandiose scale. That man was Harold Hackett, and he lived in Prince Edward Island in Canada and was fascinated with the concept of messages in a bottle. So, Mr. Hackett decided to test the waters by sending out a plethora of bottles with messages to write him back if they were found. Now, Mr. Hackett could have done 10 or 100 or maybe even 1,000, but he wanted to raise the stakes. So he sent out 4,800 bottles and then tossed them into the sea, each of them with messages to write him back. Now, never mind the cost of such things, you just have to wonder how long it would take him to write the notes, or perhaps if he just printed them all out. Fast forward some years later, and 3,000 people have responded to him. That's a lot of new pen pals. Number 1. SOS. Now, to end our list, how about another case of life being saved by a message in a bottle? In 2005, a group of migrants were stranded on a vessel. They were meant to be smuggled into another country, but were then abandoned with no means of communication. However, they could send a message in a bottle, and they absolutely did. The bottle would then be found by a fisherman who delivered it to a World Heritage Group, and that group would scramble to find the ship, which was off the coast of Costa Rica. After the ship was found, the people were saved and then taken into a safe place in order to recover. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and leave a like and a comment on this video so that you get more in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.